Well, here we are. Guess what? It's me starting the show. This is another fun edition of Cricbuzz Live, brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle. And yes, I'm in the company of our usual suspects from 24 hours ago, which is why I said it's me starting the show, because the gentleman who started us off yesterday, Shaun Pollock's around. So is Pommie Mbangwa. Shaun, are you feeling a little uncertain, being pushed down the batting order again?
No. I just want you to confess to everyone that the reason you weren't ready to go yesterday is you were still trying to make your final picks for My 11 Circle and trying to get the right team. And therefore, you are saying that the importance was actually more on you picking your team than getting ready for the show.
Guilty as charged. Guilty as charged. But as you saw in the end, that last minute pushing of Devdutt Padikkal help. But Pommie, very different game, very different surface. And we're going to have to start almost adjusting our mindset to talking about it, because this is Punjab Mumbai, which will be coming very soon from Chennai.
Yeah, look, and I look forward to it. I look forward to it because there's a side under pressure that is desperate to get some sort of rhythm, and in terms of who they play, who their main men are, and whether they can produce or not. And another side who won't necessarily feel under pressure, Mumbai, because they're a champion side. They generally can recover from stuff. And even though there's been some sort of stutter by their standards, it's early in the tournament, and they'll be okay with sort of a couple of wins in Chennai.
Yeah, the quick look at that points table we just saw, they're probably okay. It's not a word we like to use, but they're the only team who can sort of say, fine, we're okay where we are, win some, lose some kind of thing, middling. Couple of dominant game names up the top and many others clustered at 2. The other big question, of course, Shaun Pollock, is Christopher Henry Gayle. Now, remember last season, we briefly mentioned it last night, first 7 games, he didn't play. And then suddenly they push him into the team. They win 5 on the trot. This time they've gone the other way. Gayle playing. And today, I just got a glimpse a couple of minutes ago of him leading the team talk, the huddle talk.
Oh, interesting. Well, plenty of experience at this level, that's for sure, and all around the world and all the different leagues he's played. So I'm sure he'd have a few pearls of wisdom. And everyone, in once in a while, it's nice for the management. You know, he's the kind of guy who probably doesn't say too much, but it's nice every once in a while, because he's respected, just to go over and say, Chris, come on, give us a little speech before the start of the game, get the guys going, get the youngsters involved, get them to believe that they can go out there and win. So that might have been the tactic. I don't think they'll leave him out. I think he'll play. I know there has been talk that maybe it's time to put him on the bench for a while, but his first game I thought he was really good at 40 off 28 deliveries. That was perfect. And then the last game, I mean, a strike rate of 88. I think everyone who came to the crease for Punjab struggled. And I think he's one of those players who, no matter what the surface is, he's got the ability to clear the ropes at will. You know, he can do that job. He hits it with a nice flat trajectory. So I would still stick with him, but I think they would want the Master Blaster to come good and really play a nice big innings for them.
Yeah, just to add to that point, I think, Gautam, that yes, he can clear the boundary, but also as a guy who predominantly over his career has batted right up at the front in the power play, with a side that's stuttering, perhaps Agarwal and Rahul not going as well as they have done in times past. If they lose a wicket early, he's actually nice cover for that power play to still get maximum output out of that power play, and then later on still pop the ball over the rope when everyone does go back, should he bat that long. So they have cover for what can give them a decent start that puts their opposition under pressure up at the front of the game.
Well, you might also say to the captain, hey, hold on, don't forget me, I bowl some good off spin.
I wonder if he can still get them through.
Or if he gets half a chance, he does it. It just ends up being entertaining, whatever happens in that over. Certainly more entertaining than Riyan Parag when he tries to do something different with the deliveries. But 2 hints that he may play. One is, of course, he was right in the thick of that huddle. And 2, for those who are numbers men will remember, 23rd April is a day when he made a reasonably large score a few years ago. But we won't dwell too much on that unless you're Chris Gayle, of course. But Polly, another interesting little tidbit. These two teams haven't yet had occasion to chase in the entire tournament. How bizarre is that?
Yeah, it is bizarre. Normally, after 4 games, you would have thought, gee, someone is going to make them chase. And I think the big element for them is it's not just a case of chasing, because chasing is something that some teams do comfortably. And in the past, Mumbai have been very good at it. The problem for them is it's not just chasing. It's chasing on a Chennai surface that is particularly difficult to try and chase on. So that is going to be one of them will have to chase tonight, and that will be the big challenge. And I would think of the two teams involved, because of the amount of games that they've each played on this surface, Mumbai would have more chance chasing than Punjab. I think if they get asked to chase and have to chase 160, I think they're going to find it really challenging unless Gayle performs like we know he can.
Yeah, that's the big one. We talked about it yesterday, which was in a different sense, that how will Bangalore flourish when they move to a venue like Mumbai, which is you're going from one kind of surface to a better batting surface. This is Punjab, who have just come to Chennai. They played one game there and haven't looked quite at home, Pommie.
Yeah, I did a lot of thinking about why, having extended their batting lineup by including a couple more all-rounders in there, they would have kind of played the way that they did. And when you looked at that game, it wasn't a case of, they were got out and, there were particularly great deliveries that got guys out. I think what was evident was there was an intent to be aggressive, but an intent to be aggressive on a surface that was different to where they hadn't been aggressive. So in trying to address issues of a different ground, they turned up at a ground where perhaps they could have afforded to play a little bit, hold themselves a little bit back in order to aim at a target of, say, 140 and end up someone playing quite well and ending up towards the 160 mark. So, yeah, I think it happens, I guess, when you're not going so well. You're trying to address multiple things, issues of a settled 11 or unsettled 11, as the case may be, and also issues of we've got to be more aggressive, we've got to make sure that we're taking it to them up at the front and all the way through the game. And you get on a surface that turns, you get on a surface that's slow, everyone comes out and tries to do that, and you end up 120s, not going to be enough runs. Hardly ever is it going to be enough runs. And yeah, that's a problem for them. I hope this time that they kind of are a bit more circumspect and measured in the way that they look to try and be aggressive on that Chennai wicket, whichever way they go, whether they're batting first or batting second.
Well, interesting. We've got a little twist in the tail here, because I was just getting half the information that, of course, Punjab have won the toss. So you're saying, fair enough, Mumbai are going to chase. But they've won the toss, Shaun Pollock, and decided to bowl first. They want to chase.
Oh, interesting.
Gosh. Okay. Well, that's a brave move. You're going to have to give us their teams now, because otherwise it doesn't going to make too much sense to me. Have they made a longer batting lineup and decided that whatever they get on the board, they're going to try and chase down? But yeah, it's a surprise. I must admit, I wouldn't have gone that route.
Yeah, it's particularly as the games in Chennai go on. If we're talking about 3 or 4 games into the games in Chennai, I understand you'd say it's not so much the pitch that's affecting teams. It's not, but with the way things went in their previous game, the way the pitch was in the previous game, and the way other teams have gone and failed to get to 150, 160 on that pitch, it's a brave call. It's a very brave call. Perhaps it's a fearful call. I wonder if we can throw that in there.
Yeah, but I suppose the only other thing that I would consider is that they discussed, I think on one of the matches, they were talking to the groundsman. And he was under the impression that he wanted to get a better surface out there. He wanted to have something a bit more than just a 140, 150 kind of pitch. So maybe if you go on that ground today, I mean, we'll have to wait and see how the pitch plays. But maybe he has just given it a bit more water, rolled it really hard, and it looks like a better batting surface. That's the only things that can sort of come to my mind as to the reasons why they could have possibly done that.
The other one might be, they're thinking, bowl first because later on there might be dew.
Dew could be
it's the only thing I can think. It's the only other thing I can think that you're saying, well, it's going to be that much of a factor that you think, one, the dew skids it onto the surf on the surface quite nicely, but also, difficult for your bowlers to be able to hold the ball. I don't know. We're speculating here, but it's not the call that, sitting some distance away, you'd make with the results that have been and the way things have gone at Chennai.
So no major changes, gentlemen. We can confirm this. And if we can go with Mumbai first, which is a simpler option because they've gone with exactly the same side, Shaun. Have a look at that. No surprise. They tend to do that from game to game. Only 3 little aeroplanes there, which means 3 overseas players. And they're sticking with the combination they had. Jayanti Yadav had come in the previous game. They're giving him another game. And they're going with this batting first. And, or rather, Mumbai will be chasing. And, oh, wait.
No,
Mumbai will be batting first. Let me get that right. I'm as confused and surprised as everybody else. Yeah, let's just confirm that for all of you. Punjab have won the toss. They've decided to bowl first, and that was the reason we were a little surprised. We'll come to the Punjab change. A little discussion we had, Shaun Pollock, about Ravi Bishnoi just before we went on air. And I'm glad we had that short little discussion because he has been rewarded with his patience. He does come into the side, so he could quite make a difference coming in for Murugan Ashwin.
Yeah, I like it. I like this change. I think it's horses for courses. I think after what they saw on that last pitch, and I'm sure, you've just got to take him to a net session, and I'm sure he would have been creating problems for everyone who's in those nets, particularly if you've seen those nets over the years. So, yeah, it makes sense to me. And nice that there hasn't been panic. I think there could have been panic. I think the potential was there for them to try and call all pockets, but they've held their nerve and just made one good calculated decision. And I think that gives them the best chance. Mumbai, I'm not surprised they stuck with theirs. I think there's those 2 left-handers in the middle, which could have an impact as well. And I'm sure when they come into bat, that's when he'll bowl his 4 overs. Yep.
Well, Pommie, you were the one who was keen to see Ravi Bishnoi playing.
Yeah, I just particularly at Chennai. So when they turned up at Chennai, I expected that in that game they might play him, and it's not a bad call to go with Ashwin again, particularly because he's the one who had played before. However, in terms of horses for courses, I just think he bowls it that bit quicker. He also bowls right up front, doesn't mind bowling with that new ball and bowling in the power play. And with the way he sort of sometimes goes, and a lot of the time goes over the perpendicular and is not a classical leg spinner, the ball can tend to skid along, or on a surface that turns, it might turn. So some might play for no turn and it turns, some might play for turn and it doesn't turn, and you'll get that natural variation on a Chennai pitch. Yeah, the speeds at which he bowls at as well, I think are critical at Chennai, where guys will be trying to get down to him early on to try and hit him out the ground.
Yeah, I think it's pace and the length that he bowls. I think those are the key things, because what you do see at Chennai, very difficult to get away, and Chahar has hit a fantastic length. He's been really consistent and he's really worked out what it has to be. It's when you give it some air and you get it too full, it doesn't really matter, because it's not the facilities that come into play. They just whack you straight down the ground. So the fact that he is flatter and he hits that almost for a leg spin, a back of a length kind of length, I think that makes him more of a handful.
Yeah, well, you've got the information, so it means that this is around the time you can start getting in your heads. Gets in my head a little bit too much, but for all of you who can do your My 11 Circle teams a little more calmly than I do, this is the time to start planning. Get to the app, download the app if you don't have it, select 11 players, get a captain, get a vice captain, and very calmly settle in before first ball is bowled. And of course, as a little bonus, we tend to throw in our little opinion, our 3 smart picks, our 3 My 11 Circle smart picks. And the 3 men today in question are KL Rahul, Jasprit Bumrah, and Rahul Chahar. And we'll start with KL Rahul, who's already thrown us a bit of a googly with what he's done at the toss. But let's focus on KL Rahul, the batsman, Pommie, because that's really the one who's going to have to come to the party. Not the surface he loves. He likes the ball coming onto the bat. But, against Mumbai, that's not a bad record to look back on.
Yeah, look, he's a fantastic player. It just is. He's a really, really good player. He does do well against Mumbai, but you could argue he does well against absolutely everybody throughout the IPL. at the top of the order for Punjab. He's just scored so many runs, and they rely a whole lot on him. So that he'd score runs, I don't think is a question. He will score runs. The issue which would have been niggling at him is the fact of how quickly he scores those runs. I spoke at the start about addressing the issue of strike rate. What he gets, 70 or 50, 51 balls, and it wasn't enough on the day. It doesn't mean, therefore, that he's playing badly. I don't think it necessarily means that he needs to play particularly different. I think it means that he has to have a different mindset when it comes to the areas where he's got himself in and got the side to a start, where he might feel he could take the foot off the gas a little bit. He probably needs to still keep the tempo going and ensure that he's still keeping control of the game and keeping control of a run rate that's a bit higher than he would have worked out when that happened. He's a top player. I think it's important for him to work it out in his head, and when he does, if he does, which I think he will, then they'll be okay in terms of runs from him.
Yeah, Shaun, I'm going to bring you in our next smart pick, a Mumbai bowler, very appropriate, Jasprit Bumrah, an absolute champion, maybe hasn't quite been in the sort of wicket-taking form that we've seen, but yet he's the kind of person who will bowl you overs at one end, which will produce wickets at the other.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he's class. Whenever you want to turn to him, we talked about Mumbai last night, and we were saying how they've got their bankers. He's one of them. Chahar's another one who's one of our picks, our smart picks for the day. And Bumrah's got it all, hasn't he? I mean, he's that kind of guy you turn to. I would like to see him try and really make an impact for them. They haven't been able to make a massive impact this year because of the conditions in Chennai. Things haven't really helped the seam as much. And in the years gone by, we've seen left-hand Bolt and Bumrah and Patterson being used to good effect in those initial 6 overs and often putting teams onto the back foot. And if there is a team that they'd like to put onto the back foot early, it would be this team, which is in many ways top-heavy with their top three batsmen. So I'd like to see him given the opportunity to maybe have the two up front and see what he can do, because he has got that potential to blast through. And once they do that, I think he can have a big... I mean, what he can do at the death, he's brilliant. I think his natural variation, his action, his ability with the slower balls, his Yorkers, his change of pace, it's all just so good. So, I mean, I can't see him not either striking up front or getting wickets at the back end. So it seems like a very, very easy pick.
If I can add before you
go ahead
to Deepak, I think it's also a case where, Shaun, you can actually use two up at the front of Bumrah, because you have the likes of Pollard who can bowl you those cutters, and on the Chennai wicket, you probably will get away with it as you go towards the death. So you don't necessarily need the three from him towards the back end. At other grounds where it might be easier for guys where it's about the deception and the pitch doesn't help anyone at all, really, then you'd want his for the back end. But I think that Bolton-Bumrah partnership can perhaps go a bit harder up at the front. It's an area they haven't been able to exploit. When I say able to exploit, it's something that they've become accustomed to, that just they bang a couple out at the front, and then teams struggle against them because they keep coming at them as they go through the game, whether it's Bumrah, one up front, one in the middle, and two at the back, or it's Chahar, who you're going to speak about now, who also just keeps the pressure on. So, I think they can afford it, actually, up at the front.
Yeah, well, the third person we're going to talk about, it's an interesting record again if you look at that, and Rahul Chahar. And the reason we've listed it this way, and I'll come to both you gentlemen on that, Shaun first, the two games that Mumbai have won, look at the wickets he's taken, look at the impact he's had. When he hasn't actually contributed as much as he does, they've ended up losing those two games.
Yeah, they have. And that first game, I don't think he got his length right. I think he was still trying to work out what the Chennai surface was going to do. But since then, I think he's been superb. I think he's grown in confidence. The fact that he's played for India not so long ago would have given him a big boost. And he's really is Mr. Dependable. I mean, there's been situations which you can see that the transcending sort of role that he started to play, there has been situations where you almost go, let's see his 4 overs out. Let's make sure we don't try anything. And the one occasion, who was the lefty who threw it away? Was it Raina for Kolkata? He got out the last delivery of his 4 over spell.
Rana,
then Shakib got out soon after that. I mean, at that stage, I was like, just look after him. Just see him off. And they didn't. They ran at him after one had turned prodigiously, like 2 balls before. So for him to be in that sort of category now, where see him off rather than go after him, means that he's obviously having a massive role to play. And I love his variations. And I think as we talk about Bishnoi, also his pace is so similar. You know, it's not like the leggy's quicker and the googly's slower. It's all very similar. So if you aren't picking out of the hand, sure, it's a handful.
Also, an interesting one to add to that, because the moment you start performing well here, you're already thinking of the national stage. And India would always look for a good leg spinner. Now, where does Rahul Chahar fit into the scheme of things, looking at that T20 World Cup? Both you gentlemen. Pommie first.
Look, I would hope that that's not what's happening in his mind. I think, you know, if others are thinking that, great. If he's thinking about that, I think he's going to derail himself. In terms of the T20 World Cup, youngsters performing and pushing the senior guys is fantastic. It's fantastic for the Indian side. That India side, generally, it doesn't matter which part of the game you're actually talking about. You have people who are pushing everyone else for places, because I think India at the moment can. And I think it is so in all 3 formats, actually, just about, not quite, but just about, that they could pick 2 teams. The depth of their resources was shown with all those injuries when they went on that tour down under. In this format, you could pick guys who are youngsters, say, decide on an age group of, say, 23 and below, and you'd pick a really good 2020 side. And a side, if you went with them to the World Cup, that would do particularly well there. So, yeah, I don't think he needs to worry about national honors. I think just do what you do, concentrate on doing it well, focus, and the rest kind of takes care of itself. Let the selectors worry about selecting you. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, I just think it's an absolute no-brainer. When you come to the leggy for India in the T20 format, you go CHA, HA, and then. You can add the last letter.
Yeah, well, it's one of them, but the other one is senior. So
I think it also goes with ebbs and flows. I think Chahal is struggling at the moment. I think he's down on confidence. Didn't play much, and you know, he hasn't really been through that in his career. To be totally honest, he's always been a sort of automatic pick. And Chahar is now looking, saying, hey, you know, I'm performing well, I'm growing in confidence, and I'm new at this international level. But, you know, it's things have got a funny way of sorting themselves out. You'll find that as you get to the tournament, it'll be one obvious pick. You won't even really have to think about it.
Yep, fair enough.
Carry both of them, actually, in
yeah,
you know,
for sure.
You would, because where is it? You know,
and they'll probably allow bigger squads, won't they? With all the COVID stuff, you'll probably allow to have a bigger squad.
Probably be a bigger squad.
Well, we're already excited, as you can tell. Whether or not Rahul Chahar is excited or not, we certainly are. But let's come back to the matter at hand and look at Mumbai and some of their struggles at the death. And I think it's worth trying to delve a little bit into this, Shaun, and especially knowing where they are right now in terms of their batting. They've been asked to bat first, surprisingly, and maybe early days, but have a look at the number of wickets they've lost in 2021 vis-a-vis the entire season of 2020. This is obviously batting at the death.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's not ideal, is it? And I think the situation is dictated a little bit by the fact that it's Chennai, a little bit by the fact that some of those guys at the bottom order aren't in the form that they have been in the years gone by. And I think if we even look back to last year, you know, Ishan Kishan and Surya Kumar, when they came in, they maybe weren't shooting lights out with regards to strike rate, but it was never a worry. Because you just knew when it got down to those last 4 or 5 overs, there'd be Hardik Pandya or Kieran Pollard or Krunal Pandya. One of them would be at the crease at that time. and the ball would disappear, and they would catch up on anything that they maybe didn't manage to achieve. It's not that easy to do in Chennai. They would absolutely love a surface like what we've seen in Mumbai, and that's why they picked their squad, and that's the players they've picked to perform best in the 7 matches that would have taken place on their home ground. So it is a little bit of a concern, but I think they've just got to try and put that behind them. They've got to just try and make sure that the people who get the chance to do the job today get the job done, and then move on from Chennai. I think if they can walk away with 3 victories out of 5, they'll be a pretty happy squad. Even though they have had their struggles. And the only person who would be dead keen to get out there and do something would be Hardik Pandya. I mean, he's a guy, he likes to be out there, he likes to be performing, he likes to be in the limelight and helping his team win. To have had a bit of a lean spell, he won't be enjoying it. And, beware to the team that manages to catch him when he starts to feel good.
Yeah, interesting one. He's had not really contributed yet. Every time he's come up with those runouts, it's only been Hardik and Jadeja that we remember from the entire tournament with those classic direct hits. So he'll want to obviously crank it up a little bit. But going ahead to Delhi, do you think they'll already start thinking Delhi, or will we plan that on the flight or when we get there?
Yeah, I think you've got to see what you get when you get there. I know there may be the general expectation that Delhi will be similar to Chennai, but I think you have to deal with Chennai and get that sorted. And essentially for the Mumbai side, it's a case of putting a cap on the Chennai leg. And if you come off as a faster, bouncier wicket side that enjoys that a whole lot, and you've done, better, say, like Shaun says, 3 out of 5, I think you're okay. I think you're happy. And today, I think they'll feel, hey, we've been quite lucky there. They've asked us to bat first, I think if they were to choose, having been there this whole time, they would choose to bat first. And they would choose to, try and bat their opposition out of the game. And should the surface allow and perhaps deteriorate a little bit, slow down just a little bit, then they might be in a position where they can do that. I think also they need to show that they have figured out what happens on the surface. And being as good as they are in terms of the team and players that are in there, they will have worked out over the 4 innings that they've played that, hold on, we can't do what we normally do. And perhaps in this game, they kind of get to the tempered approach that is required and put something on their opposition this time.
I think also what mustn't be lost on the Delhi experiment or 4 games, if you had a look at your opposition, 2 of those games against Rajasthan. And, Rajasthan are the team that are sort of trying to come up with something. So, yeah, I don't think they'll be too concerned at all as they head over to Delhi. I'm sure they'll adapt accordingly there.
Yeah, that's what Mumbai have done so far. But I think before we get to our own little predictions for the total, Mumbai will be sitting there in that huddle, maybe not quite predicting a total, but they will have something in mind when they sort of get out to bat, having lost the toss and been asked to bat first, especially looking back at the totals that have happened so far in Chennai in all the games. And this is what it is. What does the story tell you as a side who are going to go out there and bat, Shaun, right now?
Yeah, it's a hard one. I mean, it really is a change of mindset. But I think the key is always in all these T20 encounters is to have an understanding after the first few overs and send a message back to the dressing room. I think that was always the key when I was with Mumbai, is we wanted to assess. You got 2 experienced guys at the top of the order. Please work out what's the surface doing. Is it holding? Is it turning? Is it easy to hit through the line? And get a message back so the guys can try to contemplate what an ideal score would be. So we've had 3 130, 3 140, 3 150s. I'm thinking maybe it's going to be in the 160s, just to have a 3 there as well.
Yeah. Hold that thought. It'd be a nice exercise actually if we had. I remember in mathematics and statistics classes in class 9 and 10, we would have a lot of these exercises that would come, which would be with irrelevant topics. Somebody has 10 tomatoes and 15 potatoes. But imagine being given an exercise like that, Pommie, where you're told, these are the totals in Chennai this season. What's the mean? What's the median? What's the mode? What's the ideal total? What's the average score?
Yeah, you can imagine that, and you can go with mathematics and statistics and all of that. I don't think that's what they do. Perhaps the an analyst? They might be the guys who actually do this, and not so much get their team to do it. They kind of get it done, and when they've got it done, then they give them whatever that figure is. Just as a look, these are the numbers that we're working with. Perhaps you can consider them, and then the team can do that.
I was just wondering, Pommie, if you're getting any external help for making your score predictions, or if you've just ordered some food. Either way, it's fine.
I didn't know if that was me. Should I go and check? I tell you what, I'm going to go and check. Okay.
Go ahead. Go and check. Sean, you and I will have a quick chat about where we think this Mumbai team should or what they should focus on as Pommie just ducks out to try and check that doorbell.
Okay, off he goes. Okay, so we're looking for a score.
We'll get that in nice and early. Why not? Because we normally keep it for right the end of the show. Before we do that, let's since we were talking about Hardik Pandya, I want to get your views on him. Him mentally. Is there maybe a case for him to push further up the order? Would you tinker with him at all, or just say, listen, we know what you can do. It'll come at some point.
Yeah, I think with him, you know what a firepower he can be. Patience. I think you've just got to be patient. The side's 2 from 4. No real issues with regards to him. I mean, he'd love to be bowling. You do take confidence as an all-rounder, just those few overs. I think he'd be happy about the run-outs and the contribution he's making there. But you do get that feeling that the thing he loves the most is to get in there, be destructive, whack the ball out the park. It gives him that real sense of purpose and belonging, and it can't be far away. As I say, I'm sure it won't be long before he comes good.
Yeah, Pommie's back with room service having given a suggestion for what score is ideal. But hold that thought for the moment. Just assimilate that in your head. We will look at the joy factor question and then come back with our possible predictions for Mumbai batting first, having lost the toss in Chennai. Let's give you the joy factor question for today. And for those of you who know joy well, here's your chance to try and utilize that side of it. In the specific, or in the list of top scorers in this specific match, Dilshan was in 3rd place with 33, Steve Smith in 2nd place with 41. Who was first? 33, 41, who just sneaks ahead of Steve Smith in that order. Hashtag Cricbuzz Live. Come back with your thoughts. Well, let's have a look at the story so far. As in terms of Chennai and Mumbai, I think this is always a good comparison because, we know these venues are going to be coming to an end very shortly. It's the last match for Mumbai in Chennai. But Sean, is there anything? What's the one number that sticks out most at you in this comparison between the two grounds we've seen?
Non-boundary runs. Obviously, the boundaries, it's obvious because the surface isn't coming on. You can't just stand and deliver. You can't use the pace to guide it away to the fence or just whack it out the ground. But those non-boundary runs is where the big difference is. The running between the wickets. Can you rotate strike? Can you come back for 2s? I think that's where teams will be focusing on because that rarity of this is the one that can just disappear doesn't really come when you're batting at Chennai. You have to be smart about what you do and really come up with those different options. So I think who was the best examples probably was Bairstow and Warner the other night. I think they were superb at knocking it around and knocking it into gaps and putting teams under pressure. So having calculated all that and put it into this brain of mine, it's 167. 167 is the total.
All right, there you go. Without even being asked, he's put it out there. 167. What did room service have? Come on, Pommie. What did room
I
service
tell
tell
you what, did you see that I had this great big smile on my face? It was room service. I'm still in quarantine, right? So this is my last night in quarantine, and every evening there's a delivery. Normally it's a bit late, and it's like 7:45, 8. That's when they normally come. They've decided to come early. I think it's because they want to catch the start of the game as well. So they've delivered it a little bit early. Not sure what's in there. I'll let you know maybe later on, okay?
Fair
tell you
enough.
what my score is, though. I'll tell you what I think. I think they've worked out how to bat on there, and they think, oh, wow, they've been given a present by Punjab by being told to bat first, and some of their hitters are going to come through. I'm going with 178.
178. 167, 178. There's no space for me to squeeze in there. Anything higher is too high. So the only place I can possibly go is lower, not too much lower. 160. That's all I'm going. 160. So it starts at 155 and we go all the way close to 180. So nice big place for us to choose from, nice big range for us to choose from. But Mumbai will need to put something on the board. They look delighted when they were asked to bat first. That's a final reminder. It is Punjab who have won the toss. They've decided to field first. And we will, of course, assess it all at the halfway mark. And, of course, remind all of you that Cricbuzz Plus is the place where if you want a little bit more than everything we've talked about games, about live games, that's where you're going to go. Subscribe to it and come on in and join all of us who are already there enjoying it. But Cricbuzz Combox is where we will join you in the 10th over of Mumbai's batting and see how close to that total they are, where they are, and if their bomb openers have got them off to a good start. Thank you, Pommie. Thank you, Shaun. We will see all of you in about 10 overs time. Keep watching. Cricbuzz Live brought to you in association with our fantasy partner, My 11 Circle.